Hello, family and friends. Coffee with Cody here. Welcome back to another video in our series. Today I thought I'd just kind of go all around the roadmap. I don't really have any particular topic in mind. So we'll just see where we get to and hopefully enjoy some of what I've got to say. Some of it might be historical. Some of it might be a learning lesson for family and friends that didn't know. So let's go down memory lane and see where we get. First thing I wanted to talk to you about is, have you ever heard the phrase, the oldest one in the family and the youngest one in the family and the middle child or only child? Well, I'm going to cover a few of those bases today. First of all, only child. My mother was an only child. Dorothy Ann DiGirolamo Cody was the only child of William DiGirolamo and Martha Geraldine Carney, eventually McClernand. And she was raised by herself, mostly by her mother. Did get a stepfather in the picture later on, but I'll share some pictures of her when she was younger. It was interesting that we found out later on in life that what she had said was that she had grown up as an only child and wanted to end up having 12 children. Well, she just about reached her goal. Mother bore 11 of us. There were 8 boys and 3 girls. As you found out in previous videos, we lost one brother to a crib death in 1960. Father, on the other hand, was the youngest of 3 boys. He was what you call a late child. His older brothers were 14, 10, and Dad came along when Grandma Cody and Grandpa Cody were 50 and 40. So, you know, when you talk about the youngest child in a family, sometimes they use the term spoiled. Well, I know that Dad tried to get away with a lot of stuff, but maybe he did. I can tell you some stories, and I will do that eventually because I want to focus one of my videos on just Mom and one just on Dad, telling stories about them from my memory bank. But continuing on, the oldest is kind of a double-edged sword. Being the oldest, you take on quite a bit of responsibility. You're told that you're supposed to set the example for your brothers and sisters. You have to keep an eye out for them. But really, in our family, the biggest kudos goes to Sister Tony, because as the oldest girl in that brood, she got stuck with a lot of things. And truly, I got away with a lot. Tracy and I were the oldest too, and we did our own thing mostly. But even Tracy, well, he was the clean nut, and I was not so clean. And I did what I was told. I respected my elders. I tried to do whatever I could to please my parents, not give them any trouble. But we had our trying times for sure. The middle children, well, you're talking probably, I want to go anywhere from, let's go Terry on down to, we'll get down to Martha, okay? We can consider all those middle children. Middle children in big families, or even in families with maybe 5 in them, they say sometimes get left out. Most of the focus is on the oldest and the youngest. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I've never asked my brothers and sisters about the sentiment that they felt growing up. I just know that it was a double-edged sword for me. I had a lot of responsibility. I tried to set the best example I could, It wasn't always a good one, that's for sure, especially when you're lighting the prairie on fire. Oh, heavens. But, and then you stop and think about Dennis, the youngest of the family. Well, most of us, by the time Dennis graduated, were out of the house. So he took on a role kind of as a caretaker for Mom as she aged. That's another story to be told later on. Aging. It's no fun. But continuing down this journey, I wouldn't change it for the world. I know there was a lot of responsibility. I tried to do the best I could. One of the things that I can say about our family is there was never too many words of hate. It was always love. Sure, we've had our battles once in a while, but for the most part, we looked out for one another. Mom and Dad were busy trying to put bread on the table and clothes on our backs and a shelter over our heads. And that was the main focus. It was just another time. And I'm sure that I could say similar things about families that were as large as ours that grew up in a similar way. The Hansons and the Egerbretts and the Sansevers and the Matajoskis and I could go on and on and on. But for our family, that's probably why we've stayed so tight over the years. And now Tony's the only one that we've lost out of the 10 siblings that lived. That was a tough pill to swallow for us. One of the things that we can say is that in a large family like that, you have to pity the one that's going to be the last one, because there'll be a lot of funerals that they have to attend. And I don't wish that on any of my siblings. Certainly I'm going to try and live as long as God will allow me, and we'll see what happens. But I will do my best to continue to be the big brother and the fount of knowledge, the source of history. I know I've done a lot of 23andMe and Ancestry.com and tracing family histories. Maybe some of them will take a little bit more involvement in that. Leo and Tina have taken an interest. There's a lot of documentation. Here's one that I do want to go back and talk a little bit about, and that is Dad growing up one of 3 brothers. When it comes to first cousins, on Mom's side, we didn't really have any because she didn't have any brothers or sisters. Now on Dad's side, his 2 older brothers, the oldest one, James Aloysius, Uncle Al we called him, Al and Grace. Well, they had Patrick and, oh goodness, I'm going to forget some names here. Jimmy and Billy, Sally, Mary Lou, what's the brother? Mike Cody. And then years down the road, about 2016, we find out that Uncle Al had a child out of wedlock. That's one of the things that 23andMe and Ancestry.com will do for you. We found out that he had a son by a school teacher from Wolf Point, and that son was born in June of 1940. So he is my oldest first cousin through blood, and his name is Paul Wicker. So any of those that follow me on Facebook or see my friend list or any of that, that's Paul Wicker, my oldest first cousin. And then on my Uncle Leroy, on his side, he had 3 girls. The oldest one was Mary Ann, and then we had Jetta and Priscilla. And so those are my first cousins. Now, we haven't got to spend a whole lot of time with them. The last occasion we did was at our 2016 family reunion that we did in Nebraska at my house. Paul and his wife came and met the Crazies. And then I also ended up talking Priscilla and Jetta into coming. And then on Uncle Al's side, Paul's half sisters, there was Sally and Mary Lou that came. So that was the first time we'd seen each other for a long, long time, and the first time for a lot of my brothers and sisters, because they'd never met them before. I can remember taking a trip out to California when we were young. Oh, I don't know, early 60s, maybe mid 60s. And we did spend some time with the cousins in California. They were in Sacramento at Daly City. No, that was Citrus Heights. Daly City was in San Francisco with Leroy and Dolores and their three girls. And I remember them having pet skunks. I don't know if the girls remember that, but that's one of my vivid memories. First time I'd ever seen a pet skunk. And, you know, on mom's side, we did get to meet a few of those cousins, but they were our second cousins. And mom really, Grandma McClernand had 5 siblings. Aunt Margaret and her husband, they never did have any children. The oldest, John, had 1 daughter. That's what we call Aunt Billy Rose. Even though she's our second cousin, we still call her Aunt because she was as close to mom as any sister could be. And she's still living. We still stay in touch with her and her kids. They came out, Myra, the youngest, the daughter of Billy Rose, came out to that reunion as well. So we got to see them again, first time in a long time. They did make it to Wolf Point for a rodeo. And then we had another cousin. My grandma had a brother. Her youngest brother was Jimmy, James Carney, and he had a son named Michael. And so Michael and mom and Billy Rose all grew up as only children. They were fairly close. They got to see one another once in a while. And then the other sister married a farmer in Farmersville, Illinois, and they had 3 children. They had Alec, Johnny Jordan, and Monica. And so we saw Johnny Jordan probably the most out of any of them because Johnny kind of, he spent a few summers with Grandma and Grandpa McClernand out in California while he was working on his master's in music. He was a music teacher. And there's a story about him too that maybe I'll get to eventually. But moving on beyond our family and some of that history tree, we really had 2 periods growing up for those of us that were the older kids. We had the period out in the country with the country kids, who you got to see once in a while when you had events in the area, rodeos and brandings and things like that. And then we had the time where we moved to the city and you know, lived in neighborhoods and run around with city kids. Before that, really, the only kids that we were exposed to might have been outside of the ones in the country, would have been church kids that you might have seen on Sundays, or such as the Hansons living next to Grandma Cody. The Matajoskis we saw a ton. And then the rest of the time for the Catholic school kids, you might have seen them at picnics that the church had yearly in the springtime. You'd get to play with them once in a while. And then, of course, when school started and we went to the Catholic school, they became your classmates. Every once in a while, you'd get to play with them, invite them. I can remember a couple of birthdays out in the country that we invited Pat Friesen, Mike Green, Mike Hansen, Steve Matajowski. There was a photo, and I don't know if I can find it, but if I do, I'll end up showing it. But it was either Tracy's birthday or mine, but it was those and Terry. We were all in the same photo, so that was kind of a memory. I don't know if Pat and Mike remember that, but I certainly do. Even Hawk Hansen, that was a memory. But growing up in the neighborhood where we grew up on Dayton Street, one of the first families that we met were probably the Links. The Links lived a couple doors down from us. Their dad was a border patrolman, Ken Link. And then we also had Grendals. There was Minor Grendal and Vicky, I think was their mom's name. Minor and Vicky. Anyway, they had Doug and Keith and Myrna and Terry. So we got to meet them, not for very long though, because they moved away shortly after we moved to town. And then further on in our neighborhood, if you went to the west, you would have encountered the Bartles. Now, Danny was one of those kids like my dad, where he was kind of a late arrival, an unexpected child, and really grew up on his own for quite a bit, but he was just like a Cody kid. He was up at our house probably, I want to say, at least 6 or 7 days a week. Wasn't many that we missed. And they had a big dog. Danny's big dog was a German Shepherd by the name of King. And we had this little black poodle that was Mimi. It was like Mutt and Jeff. And that was kind of similar with Danny and myself. A Mutt and Jeff scenario. So we had that in common as well. And a lot of vivid memories there. I still enjoy our Wednesday get-togethers on Zoom and the trivia that we have. Danny's been a lifelong friend of mine ever since we moved to town, from the age of 9, I suppose, 8 or 9. And then another neighborhood kid that I grew up with, it wasn't really in our neighborhood, but I went and spent a lot of time with him, was Alan Kawasaki. And Alan's family treated me just like a son and brother. Grew up with those guys too, Alan and Jerry and Casey and Bryce. And Jenny was just like a mom. And Bob, you couldn't say enough about Bob. One of the things about Bob that I will tell you is that it was the first time I'd gone hunting. I went out and we went out south on Bert Twitchell's land, and that was where I shot my first deer. Well, I didn't know it, but Alan's dad, Bob, picked up that empty shell casing, and he ended up making a tie tack out of it for me. His dad was a very resourceful gentleman. When I became a principal at the North Side, Bob was still alive, and he made me a wooden nameplate. And never forget that as well. But those are times, growing up in that neighborhood, there was always something going on. There was plenty of kids. Behind us was the Ledegees. You go on the west end a little bit, and you're going to see the Morans and a couple of different Moran families. The Garfields, they were on the south side, but they were up there quite a bit because the Morans and the Garfields were related. But it's just a whole different time. One of these episodes, I'm going to go back into my memory bank and just try to go up and down the street from my paper route, trying to remember as many houses and people that lived in them when I was growing up, who had the good apple trees and cherry trees, and even a good gardener too. Uh, oh, the memories. But that's a little bit about family. For my brothers and sisters, not a whole lot of envy or jealousy. We all knew how tough it was. We tried to chip in as best we could. We looked out for one another. And my biggest shout outs go to my sister Tony and my youngest brother Dennis. Dennis took care of Mom and was her companion for a lot of years after Dad passed away. And those have not gone unforgotten. I think that's where I'm going to stop for today. Been kind of a rambling day, and I apologize. I understand. But, you're talking about a 70-year-old memory here and where we want to go, and there's a whole lot of memories to talk about. And just some of the things that I will talk about in the upcoming future, like I said, I'm going to devote a whole session to Mom and one to Dad. And really grandparents. A lot of good times there too, even though we didn't have them for a lot of years, and my younger brothers and sisters didn't get a chance to know them as well as I did. It's just something to share with the family and all the nieces and nephews and their children. I'm kind of trying to create an autobiographical memory here. We actually filmed my grandmother, Martha McClarnon. Tina did at her house in Fargo, quite a few years ago, but we've got about 2 hours of video of Grandma McClarnon just telling stories about the family. And that's kind of where I got my idea. Not only talking a little bit about myself and sharing that with you, but also our family and some of the history and what we can share there. So with that, we're going to sign off for this Sunday. This has been Coffee with Cody, signing out.